Should people be free to use gold, silver, or crypto as currency?
As a libertarian, I'm going to completely break the rules of the show and jump in on the last question that Spike was just answering there, because Spike, where it gets even worse is when they then manipulate the official CPI figure, because there are some expenses that governments are obliged to index to inflation. And so they want real inflation to actually be a lot higher than the official inflation. Official inflation in Australia is running between 2.5% and 4%, depending on what timeline you want to look at. If you actually look at just what we pay for, what a person actually pays for, it's easily double that. But the government has been manipulating what goes into the basket of goods and how it all gets weighted and so forth since the 1980s. So you're absolutely spot on. But then when you add that gap, you realize in Australia, I don't know if you guys would be aware of this, in Australia since 2022, our standard of living has dropped on the official inflation numbers down to 2011 standards of living. So we've lost 15 years of growth in just the last 3-4 years. But actually, if you account for actual inflation and you build in all the things that the CPI calculation bleeds out, we're actually down into 1990s levels of standard of living, disposable income, etc. So, and it feels that way. I can tell you, it really does feel that way in Australia. So you're dead right, but it's actually even worse than what you described. Yes, people should be allowed to use gold, silver, cryptocurrency, etc. The idea that we can be forced to use a government's currency, but the government says companies aren't allowed to issue company scrip. This was something that Henry Ford did back in the day. A lot of the railroads used to do this back in the day. They wouldn't pay you in whatever currency the government had issued. They wouldn't pay you in gold or silver. They would issue you in company scrip. Why? Because it was their very own fiat currency, and they kind of had power over you. They were going to make you accept being paid this way. And then, of course, where do you spend it? Well, you have to spend it at the company store, which is set up. And of course, the prices there are all highly inflated and manipulated and everything else. Well, hold on, government. If you're telling me that that is criminal for a company to do, that is literally your entire economic model. You literally run your entire country in exactly the way that you would throw an executive in prison for if he tried to run his company in that exact same way. I agree with Spike's comments earlier. We need to have competition in currency. People should be free to trade, to agree on prices and goods and services as they see fit. And the medium of that exchange, the method by which they exchange that value between each other, should also be completely free.